Okay, I don't see anybody else coming in the doors, so we'll get underway. My name is David Gill. I'm the Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Concord, so thank you for coming this evening. This is going to be the first of many conversations we're going to have about Memorial Field and what the needs and wants are from the community. So as we go forward this evening, there is going to be a process to get ideas written down and report back to the larger group. But before we get going, I'd like to start off and introduce Kathleen, the Superintendent of Schools, because this is a partnership with the City of Concord and the school district. So,
Thanks. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here on this beautiful Tuesday night. At least it's not raining, right? So we appreciate everyone coming out. This is really a special moment in time for all of us, and we always wanted this to happen, and it has, and we have a collaboration and a partnership with the city to address Memorial Field, and we didn't want to go too far without hearing from all of you and giving you some information that we have already collected. And so it was important that we hold this tonight. Before I go too far, though, I'd like to introduce, we're all passing the microphone tonight. If I could, I would like to pass the microphone on to President of our Board of Education, Jim Richards, to welcome everyone.
Thank you, Kathleen. Good evening. As Kathleen said, I'm Jim Richards. I'm the president of the Concord School Board. On behalf of the Concord School Board, I'd like to welcome you all this evening. We're very excited to host the City Council's community meeting and to be a partner with the city on this project. First, I would like to thank Clint Close and his team for the audiovisual and all the excellent technology. I'd like to thank Concord TV for airing this for those who cannot attend. And of course, I'd like to thank the mayor and the city council for their leadership on the program. And naturally, I would like to thank all of you for coming out tonight to participate and for sharing your hopes and your expectations for this project. The Memorial Field Complex is an invaluable resource to the city of Concord. Softball and Little League teams call it their home. Lacrosse and soccer teams use it. It's home to summer camps as well as picnics and fireworks. And of course, it's an integral part of the Concord School District's sports and physical education and co-curricular programs. Over the past 10 years, the city has invested in the parks across this city, including Memorial Field. But I think this is the first time in about 50 years or so that we've made a comprehensive study of Memorial Field, and I'm very anxious to hear from everyone this evening. And with that, I'll pass it on, and thank you all.
and I do know there's several city councilors in the back. Raise your hand. There's several here, and there's several school board members here too. And the city manager is here. The finance director for the school district is here. So, you know, when we have these conversations, we have the people in the room that are going to have to make some tough decisions based on what you guys come up with. So, thank you all for being here. You know, real quickly, you know, this June, the city and the school district came together. They're jointly funding this project, approximately $72,000 each. And the goal is to work with the community, work with you guys in the user groups to develop a master plan for Memorial Field. And we all know Memorial Field's a little tired, so a master plan is going to be a really good process for the community. So again, both sides have agreed to go down this path together. This is step one of probably many opportunities to work together, but we're really excited. The project team is made up of the City of Concord staff. We have Beth, we have Jay, the city manager, and the school district is also represented by Kathleen, Jack Dunn, Matt Cashman, Steve Mello. So I think we have a good, if I missed everybody, I apologize. And then we've hired VHB, which is a company out of Bedford, who to help coordinate and pull the plan together. So the goal of this evening is just to briefly review the history of Memorial Field. It does go back to the early 1900s. Briefly discuss some of the users. It is the main home of Concord School District in the spring and the fall, but there are a lot of other community groups that also use it, so just to kind of bring everybody up to speed. Some of the recent investments the city's done, some of the issues. We review a couple of opportunities. We'll turn it over to VHB to kind of go over what's out there. If anybody has children in a sports program, you know there's other facilities that are much better than Memorial Field these days. So it's just to make sure we have a common understanding of where we're at. We're going to break in probably to two groups and have a 15 or 20-minute conversation, small groups regarding the wants and the needs. A lot of times those small groups have a better opportunity to talk rather than passing a microphone around. And then both of those groups will come in and kind of report back. And then we'll review next steps. So that's the plan for this evening. Little history, 1926, the first two parcels of land from Allen Hollis was given to the city, as well as a dedication bronze plaque in memory of World War I. So the original facilities, as you can see right here, was a very small section. This was the original piece. It included the clay tennis courts, the cedar track, football field, and then the softball field. And a couple of markers, and I'll go over some of them. I won't read everything. I think the interesting piece, the first baseball game was there at the field. 1945 was the first night game for football field with portable lights, and we're back to portable lights now. So we've done a full circle. So, permanent lights went here, and then I think most importantly in 1971, I don't know if anybody was involved in this process that's here tonight, but the city council did fund a feasibility study, and the city expanded Memorial Field to what it is today from an acreage point of view. And this is the master plan, I think it was 1971 or 72. And a couple of the highlights as we begin the conversation of what you guys want to do next. Obviously, I had the track, I had the tennis courts. It does have 4 softball fields. That was a higher level of play. Baseball, and then they had soccer. Over here was expanded parking, and they also had a little field house with dressing rooms, showers, changing facilities. So I think that was pretty progressive back there. They had a back parking lot back here. So that was the overall concept. And here it is today is what everybody knows. It's the parking's here, the football field, softball, the tennis courts, Little League, softball A, baseball, and then soccer and lacrosse back here. So I know you might not be able to read all these, but I think anybody who's down there understands there's a seasonality of the use. There are spring sports, and then there are fall sports, and then there are summer sports. So this diagram is also on our website, which we'll post later. I'll let you know where it is. But that's where we are today, and then the red line, the Capital Ski and Outing Club, when we have snow, maintains free cross-country skiing for the community. A complete list of the users is on our website, but obviously I didn't list, the main users are spring and fall is Concord High School athletics. That's the seasonality of sports. If it's lacrosse in the spring and baseball and softball, turning over to soccer and football and track and everything else. But it's also important to realize we do host a lot of other community groups, sometimes even during the fall and the spring sports season. So it's a scheduling opportunity. So softball tournaments You know, we do have NHIAA. They did their softball and their tennis first rounds here for the past couple of years. And then we have Special Olympics, fundraisers, July 4th. So it is truly used by the community, but the main users spring and fall is the Division I high school athletics. Past 10 years, the city's spent about $800,000 into the facility. As the tennis courts and the press box was fully renovated for the tennis courts, and General Services coordinated the renovation of the Dome Diamond press box because that was having some issues. Obviously, there's going to be some large investments going forward, and again, that's what we're here for today. Obvious, we have a water issue. The drainage that was installed in 1972 has failed. It's also interesting to note the past 5 or 6 years, we're also getting more heavy rain events. So that's magnifying the issue. We have 2.5 inches of rain last night, and if you go down there right now, soccer looks like this. And that's the baseball field in 2021. So during heavy rain events, the soils are saturated, it's low ground, the water table is probably 6 or 7 inches below grade. VHB will go over that. This summer, the park staff, we have a couple park staff here, we dug up tried to find some of the drainage areas just to see, hey, what's going on. Obviously, we didn't break this was broken when we dug it up. And then we dug down here, and it's all full with silt. So even if some water got down there, it was not draining adequately. So that just reinforced the need to have the conversation with the community to how do we improve everything. This is a general area of the 1971-72 renovations. And this is the whole complex has the water issues, but this is the main area that it's failed. And you can see some of the drainage pipes, frost from 2019. You know, a lot of times we can't open the fields because the frost is coming out, but even when the frost comes out, we still have areas that need to repair itself. Interesting to note, this area, basically from the basketball court down here, is about 3 feet below the grade of the football field. So fill, water, it's going to go to the lowest spot, and if the drainage has failed, it's going to continue to be down here. So I think we all know the opportunities. I think staff and the school district and the city understand some of the opportunities that we need to do, but through conversations tonight, we just want to hear from you guys regarding where we should go. Sports have changed. When we built the fields back in the early 70s, the football, there was no such thing as girls lacrosse. There was no such thing as lacrosse played. The two football fields, we can't get a regulation lacrosse field in the two football fields. Girls lacrosse is the largest field that we would use. Girls lacrosse is even larger than boys lacrosse. So, I think when they planned it for the sports that were popular then, and I think now we just have to anticipate now and in the future. There's no on-site field hockey field. That's played at Rollins Park. This is probably going to be a good conversation in the small groups. The main varsity football field, when the track is being used, you can't use it for other sports. So do we improve that going forward? Do we keep it as is? The track needs to be replaced. The bleachers need to be replaced. Should we have an artificial turf field? Whole conversation on that at a later meeting. There's parking challenges, and obviously the ADA challenge of some of the bleachers and stuff are there too. So that's a lot to do. I mean, it's a 36-acre park. A lot of challenges with it, but there's also going to be a lot of opportunities. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris and Eric.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Eric Girard. I'm a civil engineer with VHB in our land development group in Bedford, New Hampshire. Just wanted to start off by going over the existing efforts that we've done to date. To start a master planning effort, you really need a good base to really understand what you're working with. And for us on the engineering side, that's understanding the existing ground, what exactly is out there, and that's performing an existing conditions site survey. So we go out there, we'll grab the property lines so we know exactly what those limits are. Topography to understand the ground contours, what kind of the issues are out there related to that, allows us to do further studies related to hydrology and drainage, and in the utility infrastructure that is currently on site. Understand, is that undersized, capacity concerns, where it's going, and how we can improve that in the future. In addition, we need to understand other jurisdictional areas such as natural resource areas, including wetlands and streams. There is large forested wetlands along the northwesterly edges, and then a perennial stream that essentially is the entire westerly property line. In addition to that, we need to understand what's going on under the ground, which will aid in the future planning of what needs to happen to either structures, drainage, what's going on with the soils. So we teamed up with SW Cole, a geotechnical engineering firm, to do some geotechnical investigations. They went through, did 8 borings out there, and installed 3 groundwater monitoring wells. And that's going to tell us kind of what's happening underground. I think it's pretty evident on the surface that we can have a general idea of what those problems are. And this really just solidifies and allows us to make engineering decisions moving forward. Next slide, please. So moving on to the site constraints from those data collection efforts. Those data collection efforts started in late July. We're wrapping up some of the pieces now, and that's setting the stage for the information that we're going to get tonight to help us move forward with the proposed, conceptual layouts of what this facility wants to look like moving forward. So obviously property limits, can't go over the property lines. It's going to set the stage for what our boundaries are. Similarly, natural resource areas, got to stay out of wetlands. There are buffer zones associated with that. Work within those buffer zones are either prohibited or it's going to pull us into varying levels of permitting if we are going to be putting structures or other features within there. Similarly, the topography, understanding primarily where's the water going, how do we maintain where that water goes, but make it better for the future for the facilities we want to put there. Additionally, topography is going to aid in the discussion related to the ADA accessibility. Coming off of Fruit Street, where are we parking? How do we get folks around the facility in a safe and accessible manner? And additionally, the groundwater is obviously an issue I think most people know. The geotechnical subsurface explorations identified groundwater. It was 3 feet below at the time, but seasonal high, that can certainly come up, and we expect it to come up 3 to 6 feet below ground surface, which is extremely high when we're trying to manage water. Some of those underdrain pipes, like you had found, were actually below the elevation of the groundwater. So it's not draining, it's backing up, it's causing the issues that you're all experiencing out there. In addition, the soils in the ground aren't the greatest. They're very silty. It's not allowing water to percolate through. So that's all kind of exacerbating the same issue. So using that information moving forward, it's going to allow us to make informed decisions to, do we bring up the site, install new drainage, bring in better material to support the future fields, allow them to drain, and any other structures that may need to come in to support those facilities. So I guess moving forward, we've teamed with Chris Huntress Sports, to look at the fields. They're experts in all sports fields in the master planning effort, what can fit where, regulations, sizes, and then moving into the design of those fields. So Chris Huntress is here tonight, and he was going to run through some examples of some of the fields that they've worked on and good opportunities that may be suited for this site that we'll be looking at. Thank you.
Dave, are you driving the slide selection here? All right, perfect. Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for having me. And my name's Chris Huntress. I'm with Huntress Sports. This is not your site. This happens to be one of ours. So we are landscape architects and planners. We specialize in athletics and recreation. We've worked from levels all the way from professional sports, college, universities, cities, and towns, and to into playgrounds and smaller fields as well. So our experience for this project will be a good resource to team with VHB, where they help us understand some of the technical aspects, and we can help them understand some of the regulatory and sports-related items that go through. So as we step into this design process, excuse my notes, but the design process will start with opportunities and constraints. Much of what Eric just walked you through, looking at some of the existing facilities, the existing ground, the existing hydrology, property lines, wetlands, and the like. And then we'll begin to look at things like field orientation, field size, and take a lot of the input that we get from meetings like tonight. What sports are important, what facilities are important. And I'm going to talk a lot about fields, but we do tracks, tennis courts, basketball courts, pretty much anything that we can play on, bleachers, sound systems, the whole like. That will then take us past opportunities and constraints and into current trends. And this is really what some of these slides speak to. As a firm, we're very well versed in the products and materials that are out there, not just for athletic surfacing, either being synthetic turf or natural grass, but also running track surfaces, tennis courts, basketball courts, and the like. So we'll have a full presentation on the different opportunities that are afforded with each of those surfaces and the field sizes and sports that may prefer one surface over another. Some of the other things we'll look at would be the dimensions and layout of things like your running track. Running track, most folks would think that it's fairly uniform in size, but the reality is you can make it wider or shorter or longer. You have to hold that 400-meter dimension, but we can make it specific to fit the needs of your site and be a little more creative. So we'll be looking at some of those orientations and field size as well. Things like bleachers, understanding ADA accessibility, view and orientation, particularly when it comes to solar orientation and how that affects not only the spectators but the players on the field as well, are things that we'll take into consideration. And finally, things like sound system and sports lighting will be things that we'll want your input for. How many of these fields would be lit? How many sound systems or competing systems might you want? Dave, I'll have you kind of flip through the next of these. These are just some examples of other facilities we've worked on. We've tried to keep them to kind of the similar scale and size of the facilities that we're looking at here. This happens to be a natural grass field for baseball, and we'll have a lot of those conversations. Where would it be appropriate to use natural grass versus synthetic turf? What sports may prefer one over the other? I'll take the next slide when you're ready. And then also talk about what fits on your site. From a regulatory standpoint, but also from an aesthetic and playability standpoint. We want to make sure that as we design this facility for you, that it fits for the next 50 years. So understanding field size, field orientation, parking, access, ADA accessibility, and how the whole site flows are the kind of things that we specialize with, and we'll team with VHB to make sure that it fits into your site as well. And I think we've got one more past this. And then how do we look at multiple fields as they fit together? Is there an opportunity to do multiple fields that would potentially allow for not only field space, but baseball or softball to play across? And those are things that we can talk about in the breakout sessions and also explore as we start the master plan level. So I think with that, there was one more. And we were asked to look at opportunities that might separate, say, a game field from the track and field. And we have done that fairly frequently. And there are advantages and disadvantages to doing that as well, but I'm happy to walk folks through it. Lots of good examples throughout the New England region that we'd be happy to take you to and lead some kind of a field trip when the client's ready to go see some of these facilities in the on site. So I think that. So this is an example in the town of Dracut, where we did break out the main athletic field from the track and field, but we coordinated the site circulation, ADA accessibility, and the like. There is a main grandstand. The biggest grandstand on this one happens to be on the football field that you see here. That seats about 1,000 seats, and we put a new sound system and sports light system in here, but they intentionally made the decision to break that outside from their track and field. I'm not saying that that's what we'll do here at Memorial, but it's a conversation that you ought to have so that when we finalize a master plan, we do it with intention so that everyone understands why we made the decisions that we did. And we come to the end. So I will hand it back to Dave and certainly be available throughout the evening for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So this is where we're going to need you guys' input as residents. And we're going to break into two groups, hopefully of equal size. One group's going to stay here, and one group's going to go in a room down the hallway. And we have a staff there to have conversations with you in a more detailed regarding the wants and the needs. So we can have a smaller conversation, and then we'll come back and report those back to make sure that are the things that are the same or are the things that are different, and then have a conversation about that. So my only request is school board members and city councils split up. Don't sit in the same group. So who would like to stay here? It looks like it's probably going to be 20 here and 20.
So we've been tasked with getting some ideas and seeing what everybody
The
wants.
two turf field options where you have the main football big enough to play girls lacrosse field, and then you have the track, right, that would support another turf field for practice situations along.
I don't want to see turf in Concord. I don't care if we pay a little extra to maintain grass fields. That's what the pros are doing, is changing back to grass.
By the end of the year, we're not able to use the soccer field out back, possibly because of the weather, the wear and tear on it throughout the year.
So equity were a word that we put in there somewhere, that as we go through the process, that we think about all the people who live in our city.
Accessibility, if there was a winding path that was community, like for community, that we could get increased access to all the various fields through a community path through the space.
Great to have some natural landscape built in to take water, not just have a great built environment, but also have some natural landscape.
Here. So it might be wise to think about ways to make use of some of the space for a community rink.
Okay, I think that's everybody. Thank you for having the conversation. Just looking over the notes for both groups, the common themes, is the drainage, is the amenities, lights, accessibility, parking, not too expensive. Don't redo the whole 36 acres. How can you maximize the use that we have from an improvement point of view? So one of the things we're doing now is we have your notes. We're going to kind of put them all together. We're going to sit down with our consultants and kind of pull everything together. And then we're going to have a follow-up meeting with some concepts to review with you. So it's the other group over there, the baseball field orientation is wrong. It's not facing the right way. You have a lot of those issues with some of our athletic fields. So our consultants are going to help redefine what we should be doing and then come back. The goal is to come back hopefully in the next 2 months with another meeting. We're going to have to try to reach out to the youth and some of the players, because it'd be nice to have the athletes kind of express their ideas also. Then we're going to come back and have another meeting. And in an ideal world, our consultants have designed something that we all love. And then we could all come back here and you guys can all say, yep, that's what we want. And then the hard thing comes back to budgeting, phasing, all that conversation. But we're not at that point yet because we're just trying to create the plan. So the scheduled meeting we don't have a date yet. They have to go back and compile everything. But then we'll come back and have another meeting. And the group over there was asking timeline. Timeline is slow. We have money for design right now, and that's about $140,000. Our goal is to come back by January, February timeframe, hopefully with a concept with some pricing options for both the school district, school board, and city council can review. We do not have any money for design and permitting. So we're a couple years away from breaking ground, but the planning has to happen now. And I think the design and permitting stage by itself will probably take a year, depending on what options you guys come up with. So this PowerPoint, these notes will be on the website. The website's there. There's going to be an email there that if anybody has notes or follow-up questions, to send us an email, and then we'll get going on trying to create Memorial Field 2.0. Any last questions? How long will we accept comments from people that aren't able to be? Great question. Probably a couple weeks. I'll have a date specific on the website. Was this useful for everybody? A little bit? Everybody's heads are spinning. Some of you in there are focused on cost. City council, school board members, we're not there yet. Just breathe. But again, thank you for coming tonight. If you have any questions, this is going to be an evolving project as the next meeting comes. If you can tell your neighbors, tell your friends, it would be nice to have this place full with the 480 people, because I think this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to redo Memorial Field for the next 50 years. The last time we did it was 1971, 72. It was 4 or 5 years old, and we need to look forward and create it for the next 50 years. So thank you. Have a great night.